Now, for years, as we all know, health experts have been warning against the adverse effects of eating too much sugar, but now the filmmaker Damon Gammo has gone to extreme lengths to put their theories to the test and tells the story in his documentary, That Sugar Film. Damon, who hadn't eaten refined sugar for 3 years, took on a high sugar diet equivalent to, wait for this, 40 teaspoons a day for 2 months, and he did so without consuming any soft drinks, chocolate or ice cream, but consuming perceived more healthy foods, if you like, that in reality are laden with hidden sugars. I'll be talking to my two guests in a moment. Let's take a look, first of all, to the film.
Today, I'm going to eat 40 actual teaspoons of sugar. Just right, low-fat yogurt. There's 10 teaspoons of sugar. Here, just a bowl of plain Vita Wheats. So what I'm going to do, this now equals that. It's time for my mid-morning snack. Now I could have this amount of frozen yogurt, or 11. Now, as a pick-me-up, I could have this Go Natural Superfood Apple Strawberry Cranberry Ripple Bar, or I could have this 7-teaspoon water cracker sugar sandwich.
Words failed me, actually, but anyway, Damon is with me, Damon Gammo, and we're also joined by Dr. Aseem Malhotra, who's a cardiologist and Science Director of Action on Sugar. Thanks both for coming in. Yeah. What was that like as an experience, and what did he teach you? That's the serious thing. What did he teach us?
The whole family. Well, basically, we're just having way too much sugar than we're designed to eat. That the World Health Organization now says we should have about 6 teaspoons of sugar a day, and in Australia we're having between 30 and 40, and our bodies just aren't designed to deal with that amount of sugar. And I found that out in the kind of the most extreme possible way.
Yeah. The effects are?
Well, I think, you know, what Damon did was actually very brave, but also the movie itself is outstanding on many levels because it shows and reveals that people are consuming sugar from, you know, foods that they wouldn't normally consider to be full of sugar, you know, things like salad dressings and low-fat yogurts, things that are marketed as healthy. We know the food industry make a lot of money out of marketing foods as healthy when they're the complete opposite because people buy things on the way they're promoted. But actually also what happened to Damon within 60 days is he actually developed, you know, pretty much something called a metabolic syndrome, which is a condition which is associated with high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, heart disease. If he'd carried on, he probably would have developed these conditions. And in fact, this is what we're facing in the Western world, these issues, these problems affecting our health. I think everybody should watch it, families, children, and, you know, I'd even urge the Prime Minister, David Cameron and Barack Obama to watch it because not only would it probably have a positive effect on their health, but actually they have a power to actually regulate the food industry to get sugar reduction across populations, which would improve our health very, very quickly. So,
when we talk about the physical effects, just describe, you know, after you were into this phase, what were the first things you noticed?
Well, probably the biggest surprise and the turning point of the film was that after only 18 days I developed fatty liver disease. And all the speculation initially was that this one half of sugar, the fructose, uniquely metabolises in our body by turning to fat in the liver. So the fact that that happened to me so quickly, by the end I'd nearly had cirrhosis, so that's when the liver starts to harden. But more telling was that the fat from that liver then went out into my bloodstream, the triglycerides, and caused complications. I was pre-type 2 diabetic, heart disease risks, and I had 10 centimetres of visceral fat around my belly, which many men could probably attest to. And these are all the symptoms that we're seeing more and more prevalent in society now, and I think that's why the film has been received like it has in Australia, because people can relate to that. And in the minute I stopped the diet and removed the sugar and went back to eating water, drinking water and eating healthy foods again, all those symptoms reversed in 60 days. The fatty liver completely turned around, the pre-type 2 diabetes completely reversed.
That's crucial as well. I think that people should be aware that they can actually still change their health quite rapidly by reducing their sugar consumption. And it's not about scaremongering, there's nothing wrong with the occasional treat, but we're all consuming too much sugar. We know the average Brit in the UK is probably consuming at least 2 to 3 times the limit that Damon talked about, that the World Health Organization says, a maximum limit of 6 teaspoons a day.
I think for lots of viewers, and I mean, you know, when we've touched on this in the past, though I have to say, not as starkly as this, it is to do with people saying, hang on a bit, you know, we are trying to cut back on sugar, but you're telling us that there's sugar out there which we're not even aware of. So what does that tell us in terms of regulations, for example?
Well, yeah, very good point, Hugh. I think the problem is that, you know, we know in the United States about half of sugar consumption actually is from foods that people don't associate as being junk. And that's why the government needs to intervene really to get the food industry to reduce the sugar that they're adding to processed foods. We know, according to the Department of Health, if the sugar industry or the food industry reduced the amount of sugar they're putting in foods by about 40% over 4 years, that would be enough to halt the obesity epidemic and potentially reverse it.
And you think of the cost savings in the NHS, for example, they're enormous, aren't they? What kind of impact have you had so far? And are you seeing, you know, a kind of measurable response? I mean, people talking about changing the way that food is described and labelled, or at least, you know, government health initiatives which are more focused?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've had quite an overwhelming response to the film in Australia. It's still showing in cinemas now after 3 months, so it's we've just become the highest grossing documentary of all time in Australia and New Zealand, which is just fantastic. People are ready for the message. We've got a lot of support from you know, advocacy groups, medical organisations. We've developed a study guide for schools from grade 5 to 11, and we've had 1,000 schools sign up for that as well. So the teachers get a full term to teach the curriculum based on the concepts of the film and the book, and we're really hoping to roll that out in the UK as well.
I mean, we're seeing some more images now, but when you see very graphic images like sort of rotten teeth and all the rest of it, is that ultimately something that simply puts people off the message, or do you think that that hard-hitting bit is actually, I mean, look at this, is actually essential?
Well, look, we did discuss this when we were making the film, and I actually showed that scene. It's a scene about a young boy in Kentucky who's got a condition called Mountain Dew mouth. There's a drink there called Mountain Dew, and he has about 10 cans a day, and his teeth have completely rotted. He's not alone. And when I showed it to a group of dentists, actually at a conference in New Zealand, they said, look, don't think that only happens in lower socioeconomic areas. We see that in the cities with parents that give their kids juices, thinking they're doing the right thing, and it kind of just attacks the enamel of the teeth.
Yeah, I mean, sugar is one of the only few substances we ingest that is directly toxic to teeth enamel. And in fact, the commonest cause of tooth decay is related to sugar. Commonest cause of chronic pain in children is tooth decay. Commonest cause of hospital admissions in children is actually tooth decay. So the single biggest factor is sugar. So even for children in particular, they're very vulnerable to it.
Let's just talk in this final section about the way that you know, we can raise awareness of sugar, which is hidden, which is the whole theme here. Kinds of foods, for example, that people, you mentioned things like salad dressings and things, but what are the kinds of things that you think people watching today would not be aware of and that they should be actually avoiding? Yeah,
sure. I mean, I actually tell my patients to avoid foods often that are marketed as being healthy or low fat, because usually they're full of sugar. So actually the message is to try and eat real foods, just non-processed foods, you know. And nothing wrong with whole fruit, lots of vegetables. You know, try and avoid processed foods and look at the labels. One of the things that's quite simple to remember for people is 4 grams of sugar, which is on the label, is 1 teaspoon. If you can try and limit yourself to no more than 6 teaspoons or 24 grams of sugar a day, your health will be a lot better.
Because you pick up a tub of yogurt and it says 0% fat in very big letters on it, and you think that's the one, because I'm now being really healthy and making a big effort, and this is not actually going to be that nice, but I'm going to eat it because, you know, that's the right thing to do. Are those often bad choices?
Absolutely. I mean, I personally, Hugh, would eat full-fat yogurt because actually the guidelines are going through a process of evolution at the moment, and there's a very strong suggestion, and I know this from the science myself, actually having more fat than we're eating, particularly from foods like olive oil and nuts, for example, actually reduces your risk of many chronic diseases, in particular heart disease.
What was the most spectacular example? The thing that you came across where you thought, gosh, you know what, that is actually shocking.
Well, okay, 1 tablespoon of barbecue sauce has 2 teaspoons of sugar in it. And barbecue sauce, hoisin sauce, and sweet chili sauce all have more sugar in them than chocolate sauce per serve.
What about those very exotic crisps that you see, packets of crisps which have incredibly strong and intense flavours in them? Again, are those, because you think they're salty products, salt is a different issue, I know we were talking about sugar today, but again, are those danger areas?
Well, look, I would just say any kind of, people should try and avoid any kind of refined carbohydrate and things like that, so they've got sort of fats on them that aren't good for you. It's just they're kind of playing havoc with your insulin in your body, and when you're doing that, you're trapping fat in your body, and it's very hard to actually burn fat for energy. So I'd certainly...
Yeah, one thing that's very interesting that comes out in the movie is the fact that Damon doesn't change his total calorie intake, and there's a very powerful message there that actually sugar calories in particular have an adverse effect on the body, and we know that actually that increases the sort of waist circumference and all of the effects on the body that are associated with increasing insulin and inflammation. So I think all calories are not the same, and sugar calories are particularly bad.
It's great to talk to you both, and the film, I'm sure, will make an equally big impact here. So, and a good message to be giving. And thanks very much for both of you for coming in.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Nice to see you both. Well, with that rather sobering message in mind, he says, putting himself in, let's join Jay, who's very trim, our Jay, these days, with the weather.